welcome my brothers and sisters to the Richard James Show on 17104, The Voice. There's a statue that faces the ocean with a torch that's stretched toward the sea and a little black child who's asking, was this meant for me? There was a torch that was placed on the statue that speaks of liberty. But why does the black child inquire, was this meant for me? Give me your time, give me your word, give me your huddled masses yearning to be free. But then the tired, small, inquiring child is asking, was this meant for me? In the face of adversity, in the face of racism, in the face of discrimination, sexism, we move ahead on this journey called life. We're going to deal with today Black athletes. And there's a video or several videos that have come out that lists the top 50 Black athletes. And out of the 50 are top 10 Black athletes. Let me just say categorically, the reason I'm doing this video is to lift up the ability, the excellence that Black athletes have against the backdrop of racism and discrimination. We're headquartered in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, a little town in the south central part of the state that is the capital of the state of Pennsylvania. And out of this little town, we have been able to produce a lot of Black athletes. And that's a good thing. Let me say this categorically. I'm lifting them up because I'm going to protect who they are and what their accomplishments have been. But let me say categorically, so you can understand exactly where I'm coming from. You cannot define the 50th greatest Black athletes. By what criteria? How do you do that? Most people use popularity and call it greatness. People who are really, really well known and call it greatness. Muhammad Ali, someone who I admire and love, respect, like most, the majority of people in this country, constantly planted the seed in your mind, not mine, that he is the greatest of all time. Now, some of you are going to get mad at me, but I'm going to say, if you use an objective criteria, yes, he's probably one of the most popular athletes, one of the most well-known athletes. He was a man of great character. But to say that he was the greatest boxer of all time is a lie. It's not true. The first thing I would do is look at the facts. Look at his record. Look at the number of wins, the number of losses. Also look at the dynamics in the ring. And one thing I would say, he was a clever boxer, very talented boxer. But there are other fighters who had a much better record than Ali and who were equally talented, even though they had different styles. For example, Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson was the first Black heavyweight champion of the world. His wife happened to be white. And because They traveled throughout the same country. I mean, across state lines. He was arrested and was abused and mistreated. But his dominance in the ring is unquestioned. And how are you going to question a fighter who had to fight 25 rounds in the outdoor heat, sometime 110 degrees, and to have an enormous winning record for someone who has to fight 12 rounds? You understand what I'm saying? In a much more enclosed and controlled environment. My question is, how are you going to compare the two? Let's take another look at a heavyweight who, if I had my money, I would place him as the greatest boxer, heavyweight champion of all time. A man from the South, migrated north. They call him Joe Louis or the Brown Bomber. Joe Louis was a lot more conservative than Muhammad Ali. He was not Muslim. He was Christian, but he held the championship for 12 years and constantly defended that championship. And in his early days, he lost one fight, was to Max Mellon, then came back and knocked out Mike. And at the end of his career, when he was not as strong as he was, he began to lose a couple of fights. But if you look at Joe's technique, the way he held his hands, his defense, his offense, they call him the Brown Bomber because if he hit most people in this country rejected Islam as rejected Islam as their particular religion. They rejected it. Joe Louis didn't push his religion. It was his skills and his personality, and he was constantly lifting up people who had issues and who had problems. Joe Louis would not fight in the brigade arena, even though when he was in the service, and he went in the service, contradicting Muhammad, Ali said no, that he never had a problem with a Vietnamese, so he decided not to go into the service. That was his choice. And we respected him for that. Well, during World War II, and during Joe Louis's era, blacks and hundreds of thousands of blacks fought on the side of this country. And one of those blacks was my father, Richard James II. My father was a member of the United States Navy. And I respect Ali's position. I don't think anyone should be forced to go. And I equally respect Joe Louis's position to go. And he was fought exhibitions throughout the world during the war. And so, who was the greatest? Who was the most loved? Who was the most popular? I contend that Joe Louis was a heck of a lot more popular than Muhammad Ali. Simply because the vast majority of people, in spite of the discrimination and racism, supported the war and supported Joe Louis as his representative. And in spite of the fact that Joe Louis was black, many whites idolized Joe Louis. One thing that Rocky Marciano stated prior to fighting Joe Louis is that Joe Louis was his hero. And he was most young men's here. And Rocky Marciano was Italian, by the way. And he did fight Joe Louis, and he did defeat Joe Louis, who was in the latter stages of his career and his life. One of the last fights that he had was with Rocky Marciano. Marciano never faced Joe Louis in his prime. The outcome may or may not have been a different story. But one thing Marciano always did was lift up Joe Louis, even after he defeated him. He had nothing negative to say about Joe Louis. Max Mellon lift up Joe Louis. He had nothing negative to say about Joe Louis, even though Mellon was a Nazi, and he fought in the World War II on the side of his home, which was Germany, which is to be expected. Fought for his country, and Joe Louis did his. When they had this list, they got the law, and you can hear them raise up some names in this list. One name that they had on this list as the number one top athlete on the list was Michael Jordan, and which I think is amazing. First of all, I love Michael Jordan. I love to watch him. He was a talent. He was a great ball player. I'm not sure exactly how many NBA championships he won. I know it was at least 4 championships. And the man could jump, I mean, sky high. He was a tremendous ball player. But when you're trying to create a list, and I'm telling you again, I do not believe that you can create such a list. You have to have criteria. But even in basketball, you're going to say Michael was number one, and you're going to say Michael was a greater ball player than Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, who here at the Hershey Arena scored 100 points in a game that hasn't been matched or touched since, greater than Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain, who set all kinds of scoring records that have not been defeated since then. Wait a minute. Bill Russell, one of the greatest defensive players in basketball that ever lived. You're going to say he's greater than Bill Russell? You could say that. And my favorite, and I say favorite, I'm not saying he's the greatest because I don't think you can make that determination. But Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Kareem gave Wilt a fit when they played together. Wilt was tall, strong, and talented. Kareem was a lot more athletic than Wilt. This is the opinion of an old man. Now they're my generation, and I said, and I watched him. I was blessed with the opportunity of seeing him play. Once when I was living in Chester, and I was running a local not-for-profit project called the Chester Home Improvement Project. I was executive director. And we were in the community, and we were going around doing home improvement for the poor people in Chester, free of charge. We had a friend by the name of Lawrence Jackson, who lived in Woodland, who came down and said that he wanted to put together a basketball game up at what we call, it was Notorious Cage. The Cage is where we got it done. So I told him, yeah, we'll do that. So he brought his people up. I brought my people up. And one of the players, and this was right when he had graduated from high school, was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I have never, ever before or since seen such athleticism. He, for my money, is one of the all-time greatest. But I'm saying individuals are great in different kinds of categories. Some great ball players in terms of basketball have a tremendous hook. Some have a tremendous three-point shot. Some have a tremendous jump shot. Who in the world are you going to say is the greatest? You can't do it. You got LeBron James, and he's current, he's still playing ball. He's beginning to break some records. He's strong, he's athletic, he's very outspoken. He deplores racism, discrimination. He stands his ground, and he's a multimillionaire at this point because of his record. Certainly one of the most talented, one of the strongest basketball players that ever lived. You're going to say that he's the greatest? Other sports. And I'm just going to throw out a few names, and then we're going to look at this video, and then we're going to evaluate this video. In golf, Tiger Woods should be high on anybody's list. And some people say that golf is not a sport. Well, it is. It's a different sport. It calls for different skills. And some folks are just great at it. And Tiger Woods is one. Arthur Ashe in tennis. Serena Williams. There are so many great Black athletes that would be very, very, very difficult, or if it's not impossible to do, but very difficult to name all of them. But the thing about it, it's even more difficult to say who is the greatest. There's another young lady they don't mention, Venus Williams. There are a lot of great athletes. We have track stars, FloJo, Wilma Rudolph. How do you define who is the greatest Black athlete? I don't know if you really can do that. It's very difficult. Well, I'm going to show you this video right now, and you interpret what you interpret. And at the end of the video, we're going to evaluate the evaluators. See if these guys are very close to the truth, or are they just spouting their own particular opinion, which I agree with the latter. Let's roll it and see what they have to say.
ESPN regarding who they deemed to be the top 50 greatest Black athletes of all time. This list was compiled for a publication that ESPN sponsors called The Undefeated. Let's see what they have to say. Of course, I'm going to chime in.
Oh, this next topic should spark some serious debate. The Undefeated ranked the 50 greatest Black athletes of all time. So they polled over 10,000 adults who were asked to rank 200 athletes on 20 different surveys. Each athlete was ranked on 4 factors: ranking dominance, inspiration, and impact on society.
So that's 3, isn't it? Like dominance.
Yeah, that's why I kind of stumbled over
it. That's right, 3. Yeah.
Overall ranking, dominance, inspiration, impact on society. Okay, so here they are. Number 10, Jerry Rice, followed by Gabby Douglas, Simone Biles, Hank Aaron, Serena Williams. Jesse Owens comes in at number 5. Willie Mays is 4. Muhammad Ali 3. Jackie Robinson 2. Michael Jordan is number 1.
Well, first off, right off the bat, you can see a lot of the political correctness because Simone Biles and Gabby Douglas, they have no business being in the top 10. Not for any metric. I'm sorry, but no. And I understand that both of those sisters were very, very successful in the Olympics. I know that they both dominated, particularly Simone Biles. They both achieved a lot of gold medals, all that's well and good. But if you're talking about the top 50 greatest black athletes and you're talking about impact and things of that nature, even if you want to make sure that you have more than one so-called black female in the top 10, they really should have had people like Althea Gibson and Wilma Rudolph in the top 10 rather than these two. I'm sorry. And, Arthur Ashe, I think, should have been in the top 10 also. Just looking at this list, Arthur Ashe, and, well, let's see what they have to say.
Number one coach is here to join in on the fun. So good to have you with us. Who wants to start on this?
I would actually, the white guy would like to start.
Okay.
No shit. The so-called white liberal, he always bogarts anything in regards to so-called black people. As I've stated ad infinitum, the so-called black liberal, they follow the so-called white liberal. The so-called black woke Negro, they follow the so-called white woke person or entity or whatever you want to call them. That's why you'll notice a lot of these people who follow a lot of these alternative theories, a lot of them, they get it from the Caucasian, normally a weed head Caucasian. All right, guaranteed, never fails.
Right here.
The white guy will start.
And let the white guy on this show tell the public right now, this is a terrible list.
All right, go on
This
with
is
your bad
insane.
self,
Based
Max.
on the criteria, number one, and it's Muhammad Ali. By so much, it's ridiculous.
Well, I would say that Ali probably should be number one, but I wouldn't say that it's by so much. I think that it's by the dictates of the American liberal media that has deified Muhammad Ali. He was a very brave man. He was a phenomenal athlete. But to say he's number one by that much of a long shot, no. That's really an attempt to carry on the narrative of the liberal media that he was a force for globalization, and he was not. That's the image that they've created for him in the last 30 plus years since they've owned the rights to his name. But there are a lot of so-called black athletes that have, that have moved society in various ways, whether you want to say quote unquote forward or quote unquote upward. I mean, all that is based on your perspective and on what your ideological beliefs are. But Jack Johnson was just as impactful to me in the sporting world as a so-called black male athlete as Ali was.
Number two is a guy who didn't make the top 10. Joe Louis was heavyweight champion of the world, of the whole wide world, 9 years before Jackie Robinson broke the color line in Major League Baseball, which was significant mostly in this country.
Right, and Jack Johnson was the heavyweight champion of the world, and he was a so-called black man, and he was heavyweight champion about 30 years before Jackie Robinson allegedly broke the color line. So what are you really saying?
Not only was Joe Louis heavyweight champion of the world, he made the most title defenses in boxing history, any weight class, doesn't matter. The 25 title defenses. He had a 12-year title run. Phenomenal
boxer, phenomenal athlete, Joe Louis. The first fighter that you really see on screen who threw punches and didn't look like a chick throwing punches. When you watch a lot of those old-time fighters from the 1910s and 1920s, they're throwing punches and the wrong foot is coming off the ground. They're throwing wide looping shots. Their chin is in the air. Joe Louis is one of the first, if not the first fighter that you see on those old film reels who has perfect technique. Right? Jack Johnson was another one who had great overall technique, but he also, did a lot of wild things. But Joe Louis was the first fighter that you saw that was textbook. He fought a lot like Mikey Garcia does, right? Chin down, hands up, lead shoulder, covering the chin, moving forward, shuffling his feet. Right. Now, Mikey Garcia is a little bit more mobile, but their style is very, very, very similar. But Joe Louis was a phenomenal fighter. Problem with Joe Louis was that his competition can be questioned. I mean, for goodness sakes, the man's list of opponents were known as the Bum of the Month Club. I mean, let's be for real. And they would not allow him to fight any other great black fighters until the end of his career. And when he got in the ring with a lot of those black fighters, a lot of them would beat him. Let's be for real. Now that's a mixture of those other black fighters being extremely skilled, and also Joe being old, because Joe was a phenomenal fighter no matter who he fought. But those are just the facts of the matter.
Run. He served in the armed forces during the Second World War, it still made 25 title defenses altogether. And more importantly, he had lost one fight on his way to the title against Max Schmeling, who was a German contender. And then Joe Louis won the title against someone else, Jimmy Braddock, the Cinderella Man, and defended his title against the one man to beat him, Max Schmeling, who by this time was being used by Hitler as an example of Aryan supremacy. He was drafted into the German army, and Schmeling himself was a good guy, but he was used.
No, he was no good guy. All that is bullshit. That's a narrative that the media has created. Schmeling was a Nazi just like all the rest of them. But, you know, he put on a good act after the fact. But it is what it is, allegedly.
Was used as a symbol of Aryan supremacy during the Second World War, where the fate of planet Earth hung in the balance.
The fate of planet Earth did not hang in the balance for the Second World War. What the Second World War was about was making sure that they could consolidate all of the countries of the world, particularly the European countries, into forming what was known as the UN and NATO down the line. They tried it after World War I with the League of Nations. It failed because America was still very reticent about globalization. But after World War II, they bought in because they had enough members amongst the elite politicians who had been indoctrinated into the banking philosophies and ideologies. All right? But that's neither here nor there.
And they had a rematch at Madison Square Garden, and a lot of Hitler's high command was there in the front row to watch it. And in front of the whole wide world, Joe Louis destroyed this man in one round.
Yeah, he sure did. He beat the living shit out that man. I mean, he broke his ribs. I believe he broke his cheekbone. Like, he had that man grabbing the rope, yelling and screaming.
And became a symbol of American pride.
No, he became a pawn, right? That's what he was. When you say he became a symbol of American pride, he became a mascot. They used him up, used him dry like a good hoe. That's what they did to Joe Louis. And then had the nerve to talk about how much he owed in taxes. Okay? So that's how they treated Joe Louis. They dogged him out and he was used. But he was a hero, a major hero to the so-called black community in his day. There was a very, very famous story about a black man who was on death row. And when he went into the gas chamber for them to kill him, they overheard through the microphone that they had in the gas chamber, the black man was praying and he was saying, "Save me, Joe Louis," because they looked at Joe Louis like a Superman.
Globally, and a symbol of oppressed people all over the world, globally, in a way that few athletes have ever been. In fact, that fight was actually bigger in most ways than even Ali Frazier. That may have been the biggest sporting event or the most significant of the 20th century. Joe Louis is considered the greatest heavyweight champion for most of the 20th century and is clear number 2 choice on this list based.
And you know what's funny? Because he's right, Joe Louis was considered the greatest, certainly the greatest heavyweight until Ali. But you know what's funny? They never, or people don't look back and really analyze and scrutinize how much Muhammad Ali used to belittle Joe Louis during his time, especially when he first came into prominence in the 1960s. He would customarily belittle Joe Louis. He would belittle Joe Louis as a fighter. He would belittle Joe Louis for Joe Louis's ideological beliefs. And, you know, people swept that under the rug. But when Mayweather came out and said that he believed that he was better than Ali, everybody castigated him for it. You know, it's just funny how, people conveniently forget certain things.
Based on their criteria, and it is an outrage that he's not in the top 10. Shame on you, public.
I agree with him. He should be in the top 10. So should Arthur Ashe and Bill Russell. Sorry, but those two little gymnasts, they should not be in the top 10. Absolutely not. They should be like in the top 30.
Go ahead.
I mean, if Carl Lewis is not in the top 10, why should they be?
Go ahead, Coach.
Okay, I'm going to go with the guy that ended up beating him, Muhammad Ali. And Muhammad Ali influenced my life more than people can imagine. Growing up with a dad that was a master sergeant in the Army for 27 years, I can remember the fight like it was yesterday when he was going to fight Joe Louis. And we were sitting in the house and we were listening on the radio.
What the hell is up with Herm? Talking about when he was going to fight Joe Louis. Somebody need to make sure that Herm took his pills.
Muhammad Ali.
Sonny Liston, you mean?
Yeah, I mean,
Sonny Liston, yeah.
He's going to fight Sonny Liston.
Ali and Lewis never fought. They were compared to each other.
Excuse me, Sonny Liston.
Greatest heavyweight fight of all time, Thriller in Manila.
Sonny Liston. Muhammad Ali is going to fight Sonny Liston. And my dad was mad. He said, there's no way that loudmouth guy's going to beat Sonny Liston, right? And I said, Dad, he's going to beat him. I was a young guy, right? He ended up beating. My father wouldn't talk to me for a week. And as you wind the story up forward, what happened for me in my life, I watched Muhammad Ali win a gold medal, basically come back and say, you know what? I'm not going to join the Army. I'm not going. He gave up his ability to fight. That shocked me.
And notice, yes, Ali gave up on his career, right? He didn't get down on one knee and beg the American people to accept him, beg the so-called white man and white woman to accept him. He didn't get down on one knee and, in front of the American flag and say, please love me, please treat me fair. He said, you know what? You don't like me. I don't like you. I'm going to be a part of my own. I'm going to be a part of my own community. Once again, I don't agree with the ideologies of the so-called Nation of Islam in regards to their religious beliefs, but I do agree with a lot of their stances in regards to a creation of a culture and what they attempted to do, even though it was erroneous, right? And a lot of their conduct towards their congregation, towards their adherents, was a little off and very off-putting. But the overall concept was, it showed a ruling class mentality and so did Muhammad Ali. He showed a ruling class mentality. Okay? He didn't say, oh, well, I'm just going to protest. He didn't protest at all. He said, this is what I believe in. This is what I adhere to. This is what I'm about. And if you're going to try to threaten me by taking away my career, do what you got to do. All right? He didn't sit outside and have people, have a bunch of people saying, well, I don't know why the white man won't treat us right because, all he's doing is protesting, so the cops treat us right. Right. Ali was the first one saying, you know what, don't worry about them. We should have our own. That's what's called having a ruling class mentality.
I was going, he's not going to do that, is he? He did it. In 1978, we were playing the New Orleans Saints. That Friday night, Muhammad Ali beat Spinks, Leon Spinks, in the Superdome. We were going to play the Saints on that Sunday. Okay, I'm a professional football player now. It's 1978. Saturday night, Muhammad Ali walks into the hotel after the night before, after the fight that Saturday. He was still in New Orleans, and I had.
Yeah, probably popping mad broads knowing him.
I had enough nerves to go up and introduce myself to him, and I shook his hand. I told him who I was, and he took me over on the side, and we had about a 5-minute conversation, and I left with this. He said, son, never be afraid to bet on you.
That's right. That's how a man thinks. Always bet on yourself. That's why I say, man, everything is about self-validation and just understanding who you are and not seeking any type of validation or approval from other people. You cannot live like that. That shows a total lack of belief in yourself. And you see that consistently with every great man, every man who achieved anything. It starts within yourself and belief in yourself. And that's why I always tell brothers that, man. You can't be running around worried about who doesn't like you. And that's what all this civil rights and a lot of this stuff involving Kaepernick and these modern day internet revolutionaries and all this woke shit is really about. It's really about a reflection of their low self-esteem and the fact that they need the so-called white man and white woman to help them believe in themselves. And it's pathetic.
Because you was good enough. He told me that in 1978 after listening to him beat.
I like that. I'm going to rewind it.
And he took me over on the side, and we had about a 5-minute conversation, and I left with this. He said, son, never be afraid to bet on you, because you was good enough. He told me that in 1978 after.
That's right. You was good enough. You're not supposed to be validated or defined by anybody else other than who you are. That's it. So all that fake shit that a lot of these niggas are doing on the internet, talking all this shit about Colin Kaepernick and Cap is fighting for the people. He's not fighting for a motherfucking thing. That dude is control. He's a pawn.
After listening to him beat Sonny Liston on the radio, I got to meet Muhammad Ali. That changed my life right there. That guy changed my life. And then saw him again back in Arizona when he would give, he had obviously, you know, the Lou Gehrig disease. He had this Parkinson's disease, and he had this big event every year raising money. And so,
well, the corporations that owned him had the big event. They trotted him out as a mascot, all right, because they owned his name, and you know, they basically owned his likeness, so they owned him. And that's part of the tragic aspect of Ali that many people don't know about, that he sold the rights to his name in the late 70s after Elijah Muhammad passed. You know, Ali, I think, as a defense mechanism, as a survival mechanism, and maybe because it was kind of always in his spirit, because he was a very gregarious person. He was a people person. So I think that he took Elijah Muhammad's death as an avenue to go become more mainstream. And they took advantage of him for that. But you know, it is what it is.
And saw him again. He remembered who I was. He knew I was the head coach of the Jets. That guy changed my life. This guy, Muhammad Ali. For me, he's number one.
And in a roundabout way, he changed my life as well, and I'll tell you that story in a minute. Muhammad Ali is definitely one on my list. Max, I totally get where you're coming from. I can appreciate you being the boxing historian that you are, the excellent boxing historian that you are. I'll give you credit for that. Joe Louis definitely warrants consideration. But I'll give you not just my one, but my top five. I'm gonna give you Muhammad Ali. Okay, I'm gonna give you a guy like Jesse Owens. I'm going to give you Serena Williams, who's in my top five with the adversity that she has had to endure. And, of course, Jackie Robinson, for me, is at number 2.
Well, I think I will put Serena Williams in my list of top 10 black men to participate in sports in the 20th century, 21st century, definitely.
Obviously, Michael Jordan is the greatest that I've ever seen, but at the same time, from a social activist standpoint, obviously he pales in comparison to those individuals mentioned. He does a lot behind the scenes, but from a public persona, that's not necessarily the case. That wasn't his thing.
Yeah, because, you know, part of being an activist is that you have to act. That's what this is about. It's just about talking shit in front of a microphone. Michael Jordan was a businessman. Businessmen do what they need to do behind the scenes. And also he understood that most so-called black people in America, they really don't want any solutions. They just want to bitch and complain. All right. So I've always said that Jordan did the right thing. All right. And a lot of people don't like that because so-called blacks, they like to count other people's pockets. They like to count other people's money. They believe that they're justified in doing that. It's part of the victimization mentality that so many so-called blacks embrace. Oh, well, what has Michael Jordan done for the black community? I guarantee you, even from a proportionate scale, Michael Jordan has done more for the so-called black community than 99.999% of so-called black people. Okay? If Michael Jordan is worth 500 million, and by all accounts he's worth 1.5 billion, but say he's worth 500 million, and he gave 1% of that, right? Which is what? 1% of 500 million is what, 5 million? How many people out there have $500 and gave $5 to charity? All right. Most of you people, if you have $500 in your pocket, you're thinking about going shopping with it. All right. So before you worry about counting the next man's money, worry about what you're doing with your money. All right. Like that dude JFK said, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Stop worrying about what every other person is doing with their money and how they're donating. All right. That's the coward's way out. That's the victim's way out. I'm tired of hearing niggas always counting the next man's money.
And when you think about this, anytime, understand this, and I just said this a little while ago on SportsCenter, anytime you have a list and the word black is associated with it, as in the black athlete, please understand that it's not enough about your excellence as an athlete. It's the adverse circumstances which you had to overcome in order to be as great as you are, to have to endure that, to not have the freedom to just play the game and perform at an elite level, but to have every adverse circumstance imaginable thrusted into your presence and having to overcome that. It resonates with me when it comes to Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, well, you know what? Also, what comes along with being a great black athlete is having a lot of things put before you on a silver platter. All right. Yes, a lot of so-called black athletes come from adverse conditions and bad backgrounds, but a lot of them, when they're 13 and 14, a lot of them are getting a lot of perks, a lot of things served to them on a silver platter. All right, these are just facts. They're getting recruited to major institutions and universities around the country. A lot of them have women throwing themselves at them from the time they're 15, 16 years old. So it all depends on your perspective. Now, is there a certain thing called the quote unquote black experience that people go through here in America? Sure. It's part of being in captivity. But let's not act like everybody is, living 7 to a 1 bedroom, because that's not the case.
Who sat up there and obviously was you're talking about he refused to enter the draft. That in April of 1967, 6 months before I was born. That June, he was convicted of draft evasion, sentenced to 5 years in prison, fined about $10,000, stripped of his title. Couldn't obviously fight for 3 years, knowing that he had to go through all of that. We have to pay attention to that. But we also have to pay attention to the social consciousness of this man in different ways. We know a lot about what he did during the civil rights era and beyond. We know what he did for the black community. But as a journalist, what I remember most is a story that was once told by the great Gil Noble.
The greatest thing about Ali was that he was sincere in his gregariousness. It wasn't an act. Like he truly loved his people. There's no doubt about that.
And if I got any part of it wrong, my apologies, because I'm just going on memory here. Gil Noble was an outstanding reporter in New York for many, many years, had a show like it is that aired on Sundays. And one of the things that Muhammad Ali was doing, everybody thinks about his relationship with the great Howard Cosell, a man that I idolized as a boxing commentator, as a commentator overall. But Gil Noble went to talk to Muhammad Ali along with the rest of the press corps. And from my understanding, Ali actually pulled him to the side and gave him a one-on-one interview, which was what helped elevate Gil Noble in the profession of journalism.
Yeah, a lot like how Floyd Mayweather does with you, right? And helps elevate you and diversify the amount of topics and subjects that you cover by giving you exclusives. That's why he flipped out on you when you said, "Oh, if he doesn't fight Pacquiao next, nobody should buy into his fight." That's why he flipped out. Then you're going to try to act like you didn't know why he flipped out on you. You know why.
Because Ali, and when asked about what he could do for Ali, Ali said, pass it on and make sure you do for others what I did for you. Reach back, extend yourself, give a helping hand. And those kind of things are why I never hesitate to help young African Americans in this business, because that was what happened for Gil Noble. Those were the kind of things that happened for the late, great Ed Bradley.
That's why you help young African Americans. Man, please. You probably hire about 2 or 3 black interns, and you help them figure out where the coffee shop is, where they go to pick up your Frappuccino for you.
Those were the kind of things that happened for somebody as phenomenal as a Bryant Gumbel, somebody else that I idolize, and others. When you have an African American who is elite in so many ways and faces such incredible adverse circumstances, not only conquers and overcomes, but has the consciousness to reach back and to make sure that people, even outside of his chosen profession, but who happen to be black, and have the foresight to witness or to see what they can do for our community as a whole. Those are the kind of things that make you top notch. It's what made Ali great. It's what made Jackie Robinson great. It's what made Hank Aaron great. It's what even makes Serena Williams great because of what she has to deal with in the tennis world.
And how about, Coach, you brought up a name right as we were coming into the segment. You said, where is Bill Russell? Yeah. And he's number 36. Bill Russell, by these criteria, dominant, social impact.
No way. And another guy, too. And Stephen A. will remember this guy, Jim Brown.
No question.
But when we have inspiration and impact on society,
Well, hell, we're going to go there. Well, how about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? How about Magic Johnson? All right. I mean, when you start making a list about greatest black athletes or so-called black athletes, of course, there's going to be contention. That's why y'all make lists so people can argue about it all damn day. But I mean, just looking at this list right here, there's no way that Simone Biles and Gabby Douglas should be in the top 10. That's number one. That right there is ridiculous. They should be out of there. No, that's without even thinking about it. Jerry Rice, I love Jerry Rice. That's my favorite football player ever, but I don't know if he should make quite the top 10. Not if you're going by all the criteria that they laid out.
Jerry Rice is 10, and Jerry Rice is a great
But Muhammad
wideout.
Ali is
But how is he 10
Hey,
and
guys,
Bill Russell's not on the
guys,
top 10?
In fairness, there's no way in hell that LeBron James deserves to be 29th on the list either.
I'll have to see the list, but that sounds about right.
Higher?
He should be much higher.
Yeah.
He should be
This is
much
true.
higher.
This is true.
Well, shit, Kareem ain't in there.
This is true.
He should be much higher.
I love this conversation, and we're going to continue it a little later in the show. There's
All right, so now they've moved ahead in regards to the discussion about the top 50 greatest athletes to the topic of Tiger Woods. Let's see what they have to say.
Early in the show, we discussed the undefeated list of the top 50 black athletes of all time, and one name that raised eyebrows after being left off the list entirely, that would be Tiger Woods. Max, I will start with you on this one.
Yeah.
Do you have an issue with Tiger not being on here?
No, not at all. It's a list of athletes.
Yeah.
Tiger's a golfer. Only by the most liberal definition of athlete can you include golfers on this list. Every time Tiger Woods got Athlete of the Year, it was an outrage. Because, like, Nate Robinson, every year of his career, was clearly a far greater athlete than Tiger Woods.
What an asinine statement.
Right? Like, any athletic NBA player is a far greater athlete than Tiger Woods. Athlete? Like, when we use the word athlete, what we're really talking about is competitors who play sports. That means that you should be able to gauge their athletic ability from the sport in which they play.
No. When you say the greatest athletes, yes, you're talking about the sports or the sports world, but you're talking about their proficiency in that sport. All right? There's many examples of great athletes in different sports who were probably not that athletic. People like Larry Bird, many other athletes. I mean, even in the football, Joe Montana was a good athlete, but is he a greater athlete than Cam Newton? No. But would he rank higher on a list of greatest quarterbacks to ever play? Yes. All right. There's a lot of skill. There's a lot of the mental aspect that goes into being a great performer. All right. This is not a decathlon. It's not just about how high you jump and how fast you run. So, but once again, Max Kellerman, we already know with him, he's a super liberal Caucasian. He looks at the so-called black man as a machine, as somebody who's purely created for his entertainment. Allegedly, that's really all he's about.
Right? Even if you think some baseball player, a DH, isn't a great athlete, that's because by playing baseball, you can see that he's not a great athlete. You can't do that in golf. It only measures very specific athletic qualities.
You have people like Tiger Woods who have phenomenal golf swing speed, who had great, torque, phenomenal hand-eye coordination, great balance, great footwork, fast twitch muscle.
For example, hand-eye coordination, or maybe core torque, and then a certain amount of mental discipline. But it doesn't measure a host of other athletic attributes that we consider when we're talking great athletes. So I'll start there.
Okay.
Let alone the fact, like, Tiger's self-identification also, what does he call himself? Cablinasian or something, right? He refuses to be, it brings to mind Jay-Z, the second song off 444, when he's talking about OJ. OJ says, I'm not black, I'm OJ.
Yeah, that was another way for Jay-Z, at the behest of his masters, to continue the constant assault on O.J. Simpson. That's all that really was about. And once again, that shows you the presumptuousness of the liberal Caucasian to think that they can comment on what so-called blacks choose to call themselves. But these will be the same people, the liberal Caucasian, who will tell you that if somebody wants to identify as bisexual or homosexual, that's their right. Well, by that same contention, if Tiger Woods chooses to identify as a quote-unquote Cablinasian, all these other racial terms are contrived anyway. They're all fictitious. All right? There's no such race as black. There's no such race as white. Your color is not a race. Color, period, is not race. So if Tiger Woods chooses to include the racial lineage of his mother and his father, or however many multiracial lineages he has, if he chooses to include that in what he calls himself, that's his business. That's his business. And to be quite honest with you, most so-called black people, as ignorant as most of them are in regards to their own history and racial lineage, they have no business criticizing anybody at all. All right. But that just shows you the nerve of Max Kellerman and Molly Qerim with that derisive look on her face to mention Tiger Woods and the term that he chooses to call himself. That's his business. Is he a confused so-called black person? Absolutely he is. He's very confused about race, but that's not his fault, right? Or at least not all his fault, because he wasn't the one who decided to come from a multiracial background. He was not the one who was indoctrinated in the American school system that teaches you that color is race, right? Those are corporate terminologies, corporate designations. That's all they are. But to me, that's low-hanging fruit to say, well, Tiger Woods does not deserve to be on this list because he was multiracial and he decided that he was not going to call himself black. All right. Well, Muhammad Ali stated that he joined a group that stated that they were of the tribe of Shabazz. Does that mean that he should not be on the list because he came out and said, well, yeah, I'm black? I mean, what does that even mean? What does that mean? And by the way, Muhammad Ali's maternal grandfather was a so-called white man.
Okay, like race
Well, he is Asian and black.
Sure. Race is certainly has a lot to do with, is a social construct largely.
Well, it's partially a social construct. It's mostly a corporate construct. It's for corporate designation. That's how they categorize you. You have to be categorized and counted so that the government has a better understanding of what they're going to do to you or do to administer to you. But we'll continue this on part 2.
All right. You heard a lot of opinions from individuals on this score. There's some things I agree with, some things I totally don't agree with. Again, I reiterate my position that there's no way that you can come up with anything that's workable, any kind of system to define who is the greatest black African in existence. Even within particular categories, basketball, football, there are different types of measurements. Example, basketball. You have Michael Jordan, who they say is number 1. But I don't wonder how Michael would do against Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in a one-on-one. Who do you think would win that one? I'll tell you, I put my money on Kareem. I've seen them both play, and that's just my particular opinion. He was a great ball player. There are other people that they don't mention that were great. If I put someone close in Michael Jordan's category, as one person that I would mention would be Julius Erving, or who they call Dr. J. If you thought Michael could jump high, you should see what Julius Erving did during the course of his career. Julius Erving was a dynamic player. Earl of the Pearl Monroe, another dynamic player in that particular category. Track and field, many African Americans, and I call them African Americans, posted number 1. And these gentlemen were saying that black is not a race. That's absurd. Black is a race. According to scientists, there are 3 categories: Mongoloid, Negroid, and Caucasoid. Black race, yellow race, white race. And you can break it down different, and then there are cultural definitions. There are ethnic groups within the racial category. There are brown people. Look at India. India right now is the 2nd largest country in the world. We're close to 1 billion people. very close and probably overtaking China as been having the largest population. According to figures that I looked at, India has over 112 million blacks who are Indian. And that's a reality. And then they have what they call the Aryan population. So there are different ethnic categories of people. Great, 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 great black athletes. They kept the doors closed for us for many, many years. They would not allow us on the golf course to play golf. Some of these athletic teams, for instance, in basketball, my cousin, the infamous Jackie Robinson, broke the color barriers in baseball and became the first African American to play. And once he got in, opened the doors for other people. But what I'm saying is when you factor in the greatness of these athletes, racism is always a factor. They're not competing based on just their athletic skills. They come up against a bigoted brick wall and have to jump over, get around, go through that big wall. And let me tell you, the one race of people that have really caught more hell than any of the others, and maybe that's just a personal opinion, because I happen to be a member of that race, have been black folk. Hitchcock spoke very highly of the Aryan race. And it's really questionable as whether Hitchcock himself was actually an Aryan. He pretended to be, but the boy was rather dark. I think he wasn't from Germany, from Austria, from what I understand. But he pushed the Aryan race, and he pushed the superiority of whites over all other people, and even some whites over other whites. And so in the 1936 Olympics, in which Jesse Owens, Mac Robinson, Ben Johnson, and many, many others fighting through the brick wall of racism, actually won that Olympic, then he broke the glass of bigotry and showed that anyone who works hard, develop their skills, can succeed and can be superior in terms of their development. That's just true. That's just the way it is. And we give them the honor and uplift them for their participation. We lift up today black athletes, conquering athletes. There's so many of them now. Many of them dominate football and basketball and some of these other sports that for years they will leave them out. Well, we're coming down close to the end, and I want to lift up my business, African Paradise. We're still located in Lebanon. Here's a picture of things that we have. African Paradise. We have original paintings from Guinea-Bissau, West Africa. We have 4-foot-tall giraffes. We have statues. We have African clothing of all kinds, some beautiful African clothing. And if you didn't get that one present for the person you wanted to get it for Christmas, it's not too late. Give it to them on New Year's. Come down to Lebanon, 35 South 8th Street in downtown Lebanon, and the Lebanon Valley Farmers Market. Come in and ask for Richard James and ask for African Paradise. We're near the front door, and we will treat you with honor and respect. We don't try to get all the money we can get off one sale. In fact, we were under price. Most businesses, most African business charge a lot more money for things than we do. And do we make a major profit on it? No, we don't. But we're doing okay. We're doing well. We're doing well. The business gives me an opportunity to meet some wonderful, wonderful people, to educate some people in terms of art in the Black community, and then from the continent of Africa. Have things, for example, I have soapstone statues, huge soapstone statues from Kenya, beautiful soapstone. I have also things from African people in Asia, in Palau, for example. I have elephants that I have the giraffes, as I stated earlier, that are 4 feet tall. Come down and see about me. Come down and visit us. We've been away for a while. We spent Thanksgiving weekend in Columbus, Ohio, visiting our relatives in Columbus. It was a wonderful, wonderful trip. And then we took off for Christmas, and we spent Christmas at home. Also, the weather has been an horrendous factor in trying to stop us, but come on, see us. I got some new drums too. I got some drums from Senegal that are made of mahogany wood. If you're interested, give me a call. I'm at 717-724-7150. 717-724-7150. Give me a call. And if you want a drum, if you want an African outfit for that special occasion or just to wear, then we'll try to fix you up. Okay? And I want to say again to you, thanks again for tuning in. Continue to work and struggle to make this thing happen. The Voice is still on the air, still getting it done. And we certainly appreciate their support and technology and keeping us and all the other shows. Some of the wonderful shows. Check us out, man. Go on YouTube or go on Facebook or whatever medium that you use, and be sure you lift up the Voice 17104. Thank you. God bless you and keep you, and may heaven smile upon you. Be gracious unto you. So long, Richard James from the Richard James Show. Take care.
Thank you again for tuning in to the Richard James Show. Our African and our African American programs are set up to educate you on what's going on in this world. We thank you for taking out the time to listen. Let's hear from you sometime also. So this is your neighbor and your friend signing off. Until I see you again next week and hear from you again next week. So long. God bless.